So for a smaller nonprofit that's, let's just call it under $1 million, under $2 million annual budget, and with limited staff as well, I know that a lot of them are just would assume that, and I know that I did this when I was in those positions, just assuming that capital campaigns aren't for them. What does your data say? And then also, I mean, I like the anecdotal part as well. What do you feel about that quote unquote myth, or what would you advise any of those nonprofits?
Well, it is a myth. We can confirm that it's a myth
All right.
because we took all 700 responses and I sorted them by their annual revenue size. And so there were hundreds and under $1 million, which was great to see. So there were enough for me to be like, okay, what's going on with these under $1 million folks? And that's how we define small shops. That's totally arbitrary. It's just kind of, you said it too, it's kind of a natural, breaking point there. Those folks were just as successful. Their success rates were upwards to 95, 96%.
Same exact.
Their goal attainments were also over 100%. What was different was how much they raised. So I think the average amount for the entire data set was like $8 or $9 million. But for those under $1 million orgs, their typical campaigns were like 2 or 3 million. And that's great. And so, our co-founder, Andrea, my colleague, what she was saying going into the report is there's probably not going to be much of a difference except where the commas are in their goal amount. And that really, I guess that was, the commas are the same, but that first number is a little smaller. So I say this to be, encouraging that small shops can do it. All you need is a big vision, which any organization can have, and actually maybe even smaller shops are more suited for because they're maybe growing, right? And an existing base of support. And small shops can have that. So they can do it. They do it. And there were actually areas where small shops outperformed the rest of the cohort, which is something we don't hear very often. A couple of things come to mind there is the executive director and the board tended to be more engaged in fundraising before and during the campaign, which makes sense to me because if it's a small kind of scrappy org, and I would assume that ED is maybe a founder or someone at least who is very passionate about the mission, and the same with the board members. Not that that can't be true in bigger orgs, but I think it's probably a little more, maybe even more likely for the smaller orgs. So that was great. So I think the bigger orgs can learn something from that. It also tended to be their first campaign, which is, I think what that says is that anyone can do a campaign, right? Especially if you hire help, whether it's staff or consultant, or, just seek out, that knowledge and that help in whatever form it is. But anyone can do it. So with them being their first campaign, what we saw is they were putting systems in place for the first time rather than upgrading a CRM. They were maybe getting their first CRM or, maybe getting their first sort of well screening tool or whatever.
You could also say that after the campaign, they became an over $1 million organization and bumped into the bracket.
You absolutely are. If you're raising 2 or 3 million, which was the average, and you were barely knocking down the door of $1 million, you absolutely are for sure. And then if the annual fund grows, which 70-80% of the time it does, you're over that. So you can do it.
Highly encouraging. That's just
absolutely
information. Yeah,
absolutely. And with capital campaigns, consultants, I think, don't like us to say this, but we don't mind saying it because we're sort of we're the rogues of the sector. I feel like there is a playbook to capital campaigns that anyone can follow. There's not a lot of like black magic or anything super secret. And I think sometimes
you're officially not wizards, as you said.
No. And like, you can, and we're happy to like elucidate that playbook for people and empower them. But some consultants, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz a little bit, where it's like, we'll do it. We know how to do it. We've been doing it for decades, and only us can do it. You can do it. It's one of the only it's one of the only fundraising disciplines where there is sort of a playbook that has sort of sequential steps, and sometimes there are variations, of course, but anyone can do it. And size,
I do have to imagine that some experience can really help. And like you said,
it is
coming in midway, midstream is often too